Hello friends. Have you ever met someone who seemed grounded like the earth, yet moved with the quiet agility of a breeze? Someone who thrives on consistency, craves beauty, and has a mysterious softness beneath their strong exterior. You may have just crossed paths with a Taurus born in the year of the rabbit. Now, what happens when the unshakable strength of Taurus blends with the gentle, intuitive charm of the rabbit? You're not just getting someone pleasant or reliable. You're meeting one of the most quietly powerful personalities in the zodiac cycle combo world. And today, we're diving deep into what makes this unique individual tick, from love to business, from shadow traits to lifelong missions. Let's unpack it all. Love, the slow burn that lasts forever. Love for the Taurus rabbit is not a fleeting spark or an impulsive fire. It's a carefully maintained flame, nurtured like an ancient lantern passed from generation to generation. It doesn't rush or shout. It whispers. This kind of love doesn't arrive all at once. It blooms slowly, like a flower opening with the rhythm of the sun. For the Taurus rabbit, love is not a pursuit of adrenaline but a pursuit of depth, safety, and emotional nourishment. Every step toward intimacy is calculated, not out of manipulation but out of deep respect, for the process, for the person, and for the potential of what love could become if properly cared for. Taurus, ruled by Venus, brings into this mix a foundational craving for physical connection, sensory pleasure, and devotion. There is something profoundly grounding about the way Taurus loves, like a tree that's planted and refuses to move, no matter how strong the winds of life blow. It creates a stable emotional environment where love can be both an escape and a base camp. Then the rabbit, governed by Chinese lunar energies, adds an ethereal softness, an emotional intuition that knows how to read a room, sense the unsaid, and navigate feelings with elegant sensitivity. Rabbits don't just fall for faces, they fall for energy, tone, and emotional climate. Together, this pairing produces a lover who seems paradoxical at first, steadfast yet shy, romantic but reserved, emotionally deep yet slow to open up. They are warm but cautious, soft but not naive. They believe in soulmates, but don't believe in rushing the story. They'll quietly observe you for months before letting you in emotionally, but the moment they recognize real emotional safety, they blossom into the kind of partner who builds empires out of little moments. Every text, every hug, every joke between you is added to a growing archive of significance in their heart. Taurus rabbits don't fall in love, they build it. Brick by brick, look by look. They're the type to remember the first words you said, the way your hand moved the first time you reached for theirs, and the way your voice changed when you said, "Good night." Love is stored in details. And details, to them, are everything. While others may dive into love headfirst, the Taurus rabbit watches from the edge, making sure the water is just the right temperature, the depth is safe, and the air around it is clear. This might seem overly careful, but to them, it's necessary. Their heart is not something they hand over lightly. This carefulness isn't coldness. In fact, once they've chosen someone, they love with a kind of ferocity that's rare. They will protect you, spoil you, support you, and remain astonishingly loyal, sometimes to their own detriment. Their love isn't about loud declarations or grand gestures. It's about showing up, being present, making your life easier without making a fuss about it. They remember the little things. How you like your coffee, the song that calms you down, the fact that Tuesdays make you anxious. Their love becomes a form of emotional architecture, quiet but strong, invisible to outsiders, yet profoundly comforting to the one inside. There is an undeniable sensuality in the way the Taurus rabbit experiences love. Touch is sacred, smell is memory, taste, sound, temperature, all of it matters. A romantic evening for them is not about impressing you with extravagance, it's about intimacy. A dimly lit dinner, soft music, thick blankets, the scent of your skin mingling with lavender or sandalwood. They aim to create moments that wrap around you like silk, elegant, soft, unforgettable. Love, to them, is as much about presence and attention as it is about passion. In fact, their passion only grows when there's emotional stillness, when the chaos of life quiets down and you're just together. But here's the hidden struggle. They are often too careful. Their fear of being hurt, embarrassed, or abandoned can make them overly slow to trust. They will watch a potential relationship sail by simply because they weren't ready to board. And even if they do get involved, the fear of loss can turn into emotional hoarding. They cling, they protect, they sometimes smother. Not out of control, but out of sheer terror that something so rare could be taken from them. This makes their love intense, but it also makes it vulnerable to stagnation or imbalance. And once they fall in love, letting go is almost unfathomable. Even if the relationship turns cold, distant, or painful, they will hold on to the memory of what it once was, hoping it can return. Their loyalty becomes their trap. Their emotional memory becomes a chain. They'll replay old conversations, reread old texts, and fantasize about reconciliation long after the other person has moved on. Love, to them, is never casual. It's epic, it's sacred, and that sacredness means the ending of love feels like the tearing down of a temple. However, when matched with a partner who appreciates their tempo and respects the quiet complexity of their affection, the Taurus Rabbit becomes a deeply fulfilling romantic companion. They bring warmth in winter, consistency in chaos. Their love is the kind that shows up when it matters most, when you're sick, when you're scared, when you're broken. They won't always know what to say, but they'll hold your hand, stay beside you, and bring you soup. They love through action, through presence, through silence that feels like safety. In a world full of loud romance and shallow promises, Taurus Rabbits are the rare souls who still believe love should feel like home. Not just any home, but the one with warm light in the window, the scent of something baking in the kitchen, and the quiet knowledge that you're safe there, always. Marriage, a safe harbor built to last. In marriage, the Taurus Rabbit doesn't just commit, they devote. This is not someone who takes vows lightly or views marriage as a flexible concept. To them, marriage is sacred architecture, and they're not just the architect, they're the builder, the maintenance crew, and the security system. Everything about their approach is deliberate. They don't get married because it's time, or because others expect it. They marry when the foundation feels unshakably secure, when emotional compatibility has been proven over time, and when they can see the long-term structure of a shared life stretching calmly into the future. For them, marriage is the ultimate partnership, not just romantic but practical, emotional, and spiritual. The Taurus Rabbit spouse is the kind who prepares for commitment like it's a long voyage across an unpredictable ocean. They stock the metaphorical pantry, chart the safest route, and fix the sails before the first wind ever hits. They're traditional in the sense that they believe in building something with deep roots, shared rituals, Sunday morning routines, holiday traditions, and clear communication. They're not interested in relationships that are only exciting when things are new. They are builders of the long after, of decades, of wrinkles, of weathered hands still reaching for each other in the dark. What sets them apart in marriage is their need to provide not just physical safety, but emotional safety. The rabbit inside them is highly attuned to emotional temperature. They can sense shifts in mood like a barometer reads pressure. The Taurus part is slow to react, but when they do, it's with steady hands. Together, this makes for a partner who listens before responding, who senses pain before it's spoken, who fixes the leaky roof of a relationship before the rain arrives. They don't run from emotional discomfort, they quietly address it, hoping to prevent damage before it starts. These are the spouses who will balance your checkbook, remember your dentist appointment, and quietly refill the coffee you forgot you needed. They handle logistics not out of control freak tendencies, but because it brings them joy to manage life for those they love. If their partner feels calm, settled, and secure, that, to them, is success. It may not be glamorous, but it's deeply meaningful. They believe marriage is less about dramatic declarations and more about everyday reliability. They're the heartbeat that doesn't skip, the steady rhythm that says, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Beneath this reliability is also a deep romanticism, albeit understated. They believe in celebrating anniversaries, not with grand gestures, but with thoughtful ones, a handwritten letter, a favorite meal, a quiet evening remembering old stories. They'll keep mementos of your life together tucked away in drawers, concert tickets, old notes, pictures that didn't make it into frames but meant something personal. They may not express love in fireworks, but they offer something rarer, consistency that never fades. In a world addicted to the highs and lows of passion, the Taurus Rabbit finds beauty in the middle, in the gentle slope of a shared life, not the roller coaster. Their need for peace can make them allergic to conflict, and this can be both a gift and a flaw in marriage. On the positive side, they won't pick fights. They'll work hard to avoid drama. They'll create a home where harmony hums like background music. But the downside? Sometimes they avoid necessary conversations. They may stay silent when something hurts, suppressing discomfort in the name of keeping the peace. Over time, this can lead to unspoken resentment if not carefully addressed. They don't explode, but they do internalize. The trick is helping them feel safe enough to speak up without fear of shaking the equilibrium they work so hard to maintain. Control and comfort are the twin pillars of their marital worldview. They want to know what's coming, plan for it, and manage it with grace. This doesn't mean they're incapable of spontaneity, but it means they prefer it when spontaneity is gently scheduled. The rabbit's nervous system and the Taurus's love of routine both resist chaos. They're not cold, they're simply calibrated to function best in environments where the ground is solid and the emotional climate is stable. If married to someone erratic, impulsive, or emotionally volatile, the Taurus Rabbit may begin to shrink inward, retreating into their shell for safety. Financial fidelity is also a hallmark of their marriage behavior. They don't just value loyalty with hearts, they extend that loyalty to bank accounts, to shared goals, to 5-year plans. They're unlikely to gamble with the family's future. Instead, they approach money with the same mindset as love, measured care, long-term vision, and security above all else. They'll budget, they'll save, they'll plan for the kids' college before the kids are even born. And while this might seem overly serious, it comes from a place of love. Providing materially and emotionally is how they say, "You're safe with me." They're also fiercely private. Marriage, for them, is something intimate, not something to parade on social media or involve in group therapy chats. They believe in solving things behind closed doors. Their loyalty is deep and unwavering, but it's also quiet. You won't hear them gushing in public or broadcasting their spouse's virtues to anyone who will listen. Instead, they'll show up, every single day, doing the work of loving without needing applause. To them, real love doesn't need an audience. What they long for most in marriage is mutual understanding without constant negotiation. They want a partner who just gets it, someone who values what they value. Peace over passion, kindness over chaos, reliability over wild romance. When they find that, they bloom, their love deepens, their loyalty becomes transformative. They become not just a spouse, but a true life companion, the kind who will grow old with you not out of obligation, but because they honestly wouldn't want to grow old with anyone else. In the end, being married to a Taurus Rabbit may not always feel like a romantic movie, but it will feel like your favorite book. Familiar, comforting, wise, and written with care. And in a world that often favors spectacle over substance, this kind of love might just be the most rare and precious of all. Sex. Slow, intimate, and sensorial. For the Taurus Rabbit, sex is never just about release or performance, it's about immersion. It's the meeting place between soul and skin, a sacred space where trust, tenderness, and tactile beauty all merge into one slow-burning ritual. This isn't a sign combination driven by impulse or casual cravings. Instead, their sexuality is rooted in a need for emotional safety, aesthetic atmosphere, and physical connection that goes far deeper than the act itself. If love is the garden they carefully cultivate, sex is the part where they gently, reverently, pick its ripest fruit. With the Taurus Rabbit, sex is not fast food. It's a multi-course meal, served with candles, meaning, and care. There's an undeniable sense of ritual in the way they approach physical intimacy. Everything matters: the lighting, the temperature, the timing, the emotional tone of the day, even the way the sheets feel against bare skin. Taurus, ruled by Venus, lives for sensory pleasure. They are deeply aroused by smell, taste, sound, and softness. The rabbit, tuned into emotional nuance, brings an intuitive sensitivity that makes their touch feel not just sensual but soulful. When these two combine, they create lovers who don't just undress the body, but the whole emotional being behind it. To them, true sexual connection can't exist without trust, emotional context, and an environment of peace. They aren't drawn to chaotic or reckless intimacy. In fact, random hookups or meaningless flings often feel alienating or even disturbing to them. Without some form of genuine connection, the Taurus Rabbit feels physically vulnerable and emotionally off balance. For them, sex is something earned over time, through soft conversations, slow glances, shared silences, and the gradual weaving of intimacy into everyday life. When that emotional safety net is in place, however, their sensuality awakens in full force. They become generous, patient, deeply affectionate lovers who want to explore not just pleasure, but belonging. Touch is everything to them. Every brush of the fingers, every breath on the neck, every heartbeat shared beneath the sheets becomes a language of love. They notice the little things, the texture of skin, the rhythm of breath, the changes in energy. Sex with a Taurus Rabbit is more like a symphony than a pop song, carefully composed, slowly building, with moments of crescendo and hush, passion and pause. They listen with their fingertips. They memorize the way your body responds. And they take pride in learning what brings you not just satisfaction, but peace. The pace is unhurried, because speed is irrelevant to them. They don't care how fast or wild things get. They care about how deeply connected it all feels. To them, foreplay is not just a warm-up, it's an entire world of emotional and physical communication. They might spend an hour just kissing, caressing, whispering, building tension not with friction, but with presence. They create a space where time seems to dissolve, where there's no goal except immersion in the moment. The goal isn't climax, the goal is closeness. Unity, that rare feeling when you forget where one person ends and the other begins. Their bedroom environment reflects their inner world, intentional, cozy, private, and rich with sensual detail. Think dim lighting, warm colors, soft textures, ambient sounds, and gentle scents like sandalwood, rose, or vanilla. The space is sacred, not performative. They don't need lingerie catalog fantasies or high drama. They crave intimacy that feels handcrafted, not staged. It's not about being watched or admired, it's about being known. Being felt, being fully with someone. For the Taurus Rabbit, sex isn't an escape, it's an arrival. A way of saying, I'm here with you, completely. They may not be loud or verbal about their desires. In fact, many Taurus Rabbits are sexually expressive in subtle, almost poetic ways. Their passions are rarely shouted, they're whispered through movement, through rhythm, through the slow, deliberate way they engage. But beneath that calm surface lies an intensity that can be breathtaking. They are surprisingly passionate when the emotional and physical conditions are right. When they trust their partner fully, when they feel safe, and when their senses are awakened, they can reveal a depth of eroticism that's both primal and deeply emotional. They are also incredibly generous lovers, but only when their emotional needs are met. They give their best when they feel seen, loved, and appreciated. If their partner is cold, rushed, distracted, or emotionally distant, the Taurus Rabbit will begin to retreat inward, slowly withdrawing their energy until intimacy begins to feel mechanical. But when they feel connected, respected, and nurtured, they go above and beyond to ensure their partner feels cherished and fulfilled. Their sexuality becomes a gift, not just an act, but a gesture of devotion, a soft ritual of emotional and physical presence. For a partner who values emotional depth, slow intimacy, and deeply sensory experiences, sex with a Taurus Rabbit can be transcendent. It's not about performance or novelty. It's about feeling held, body, heart, and soul. With them, you don't just make love. You create a shared atmosphere of warmth, softness, and safety. It's the kind of experience that lingers long after the moment has passed, not because it was wild or explosive, but because it was real. Because it meant something. Because, for a few quiet hours, you weren't just bodies in motion, you were two souls meeting, quietly and completely. Friendship, the loyal listener. Friendship with a Taurus Rabbit isn't casual, accidental, or superficial. It's a choice, and once they choose you, they keep choosing you for life. These are not the types to gather a crowd of acquaintances just to feel socially validated. They don't thrive on quantity. They thrive on quality. Slow brewed, deeply rooted, emotionally honest relationships that stand the test of time, distance, and difficulty. In their world, true friendship is not a vibe, it's a vow. Once they feel safe with you, they won't just be your friend, they'll be your secret keeper, your emotional first responder, your shoulder during storms. You earn their loyalty, and once it's yours, it's unshakable. They gravitate toward friendships that feel like calm harbors in an often chaotic world. Taurus craves routine, grounding, and a sense of permanence. The rabbit craves peace, emotional depth, and intuitive understanding. Combined, they seek out friends who offer warmth without pressure, connection without chaos, and presence without noise. If you're loud, aggressive, or constantly bouncing from drama to drama, they may smile politely but keep their emotional distance. They're not judging you, they're simply protecting their peace. Friendship, to them, isn't about constant activity or shared popularity. It's about trust, steadiness, and the freedom to be vulnerable without fear of being judged or abandoned. Their inner circle is small, deliberately so. They may know a lot of people, but they only truly bond with a chosen few. These are often friends they've known for years, if not decades. People who have been through real life together, not just parties, but heartbreaks, illnesses, job losses, and growth. Taurus rabbits are fiercely loyal and quietly sentimental. They'll keep your old birthday cards in a drawer. They'll remember the exact way you like your tea. They'll call you on a random Tuesday just because they felt something was off in your voice the day before. They don't just listen, they absorb you. Their reliability is unmatched. This is the friend who shows up when no one else does. Moving to a new apartment? They'll bring boxes and sandwiches. Lost your job? They'll help polish your resume and talk you through the panic. Sick in bed? Expect soup, tissues, and your favorite snack. They do all this without grandstanding or needing public recognition. In fact, they're often uncomfortable with attention. To them, being there is not a big deal. It's just what you do for someone you love. Their acts of service are quiet, consistent, and heartfelt. You won't always hear their loyalty, but you'll always feel it. However, earning their friendship isn't easy. They are incredibly discerning, some might even say picky. They scan for authenticity like emotional TSA agents. They don't trust quickly, and they certainly don't open up just because someone smiles at them. They need to know you're stable, kind, and most importantly, emotionally safe. If you're flaky, overly reactive, or someone who thrives on gossip or performative friendship, they'll quietly pull away. Not dramatically, but with unmistakable finality. You won't always know what you did to get distanced. That's because, for the Taurus rabbit, friendship is sacred. They guard their emotional energy with quiet intensity, and they don't believe in wasting time on connections that don't feel genuine. Once you've proven yourself to them, shown up when it wasn't convenient, shared without demanding, listened without interrupting, they will give you something rare: full-spectrum emotional loyalty. This means they'll defend you in rooms you're not in. They'll think about your needs even when they're busy. They'll carry your heartbreak like it's partially their own. They're not flashy with affection, but they're deep with it. They'll remember the tough day at work you casually mentioned 3 weeks ago. They'll text you when it rains because they know the sound soothes your anxiety. They remember, they notice, they care, all without making a big show of it. They also value space in friendship. They don't need or want constant attention. You might not hear from them every day, or even every week, but when you do, it's thoughtful, real, and emotionally present. They understand that life gets busy, and they appreciate friends who don't mistake silence for distance. In return, they give you that same grace. You can disappear for a month and come back to them without guilt or drama. The emotional connection doesn't reset, it resumes. Effortlessly. That kind of stability is rare, and with them, it's deeply rooted. They're natural listeners, not fixers. If you come to them with a problem, they won't interrupt or hijack your story. They'll sit with you in the discomfort. Ask questions. Offer perspective, gently. If you want advice, they'll give it. If you just want to be heard, they'll stay silent but present. They have a soothing energy, a groundedness that makes you feel safe being exactly who you are. They don't just listen with their ears, they listen with their whole emotional awareness. You'll leave conversations with them feeling lighter, calmer, and understood on a soul level. In the end, friendship with a Taurus Rabbit is a rare and precious gift. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's real, unshakable, thoughtful, deep. They are the quiet constant in a world full of temporary people. The friend who remembers your dreams, who protects your secrets, who gives without keeping score. And in their soft-spoken, deeply committed way, they will love you, not just for who you are now, but for all the versions of you they've seen and still believed in. Business, the quiet strategist. In business, the Taurus Rabbit operates with a level of patience and precision that often goes unnoticed, until the results begin to speak louder than the noise around them. They're not the flashy disruptors of industries or the bold risk-takers chasing fast money. Instead, they are meticulous planners, systems thinkers, and quiet executors who believe success is earned through careful preparation and long-term vision. They are the rare professionals who blend practicality with emotional wisdom. They aren't just focused on profits, they want the process to feel good, make sense, and align with their values. If business is a game of chess, the Taurus Rabbit plays like a grandmaster, deliberate, insightful, and always thinking 5 moves ahead. Their core strength in business comes from their dual nature. Taurus, grounded and enduring, provides an unshakable sense of responsibility, while Rabbit, intuitive and emotionally intelligent, gives them the power to read the room, interpret subtext, and adapt softly without ever compromising their integrity. Together, these energies form a business mind that's both strategic and sensitive. They know when to push and when to pause. They understand that the best decisions are not always the fastest but the ones that leave no loose ends. That's why they rarely stumble into avoidable pitfalls. They don't just foresee problems, they design systems to prevent them. The Taurus Rabbit is not one to dive headfirst into a new opportunity without understanding every angle. They read the fine print, research the history, check the reviews, and run the numbers twice. In this way, they avoid the kind of careless risk-taking that topples businesses overnight. Their caution, while sometimes perceived as hesitation, is actually a form of respect for complexity. They understand that every business venture, deal, or partnership has multiple layers, and they're committed to peeling each one back before making a move. That methodical pace may frustrate impulsive collaborators, but over time, it earns respect. Why? Because their ideas work, their structures hold, their plans deliver. When it comes to teamwork, the Taurus Rabbit is the ideal backbone of a group. They're not driven by ego or the need for credit. They're driven by a deep sense of contribution and responsibility. You can trust them to show up, meet deadlines, keep things organized, and do it all without grandstanding. In meetings, they may not speak first, but when they do, people listen. Their insights are grounded, thoughtful, and solution-oriented. They don't waste words or energy. They're the colleague who brings snacks for the team, double-checks the spreadsheet formulas, and catches issues before they spiral. They build loyalty quietly, but powerfully. They thrive in business environments where consistency, structure, and emotional nuance are valued. Fields like interior design, architecture, financial planning, education, counseling, and culinary arts are perfect for them. Why? Because these professions combine beauty with function, service with strategy, and creativity with discipline. They're not interested in chaos or corporate games. They want to work in places where emotional intelligence matters just as much as technical skills. Where collaboration is prioritized over competition. Where people are treated like people, not metrics. They flourish in roles that allow them to create, refine, support, and stabilize. As entrepreneurs, they move slowly, but deliberately. They're unlikely to start a business overnight, but when they do, it's usually something they've been planning for years. Every detail is thought through. The name, the branding, the market positioning, the long-term sustainability. They don't just dream of success, they reverse engineer it. Their businesses tend to grow organically, grounded in trust and authenticity. Customers and clients come to them not because of loud marketing but because of reputation. Their work speaks for itself. Their calm, grounded presence builds relationships that last, and they'd rather build a brand slowly and sustainably than go viral for a moment and burn out. But their biggest professional obstacle is the same trait that gives them so much strength: caution. Their deep desire for certainty can lead to paralysis by analysis. They may wait too long, second-guessing themselves, constantly refining their plans while the window of opportunity quietly closes. Sometimes, they get stuck in the planning phase, afraid to act unless everything is perfect. That perfectionism, while protective, can become a trap. They must learn that in business, not every decision will feel 100% safe. Sometimes, calculated risk is necessary for growth. If they can embrace the idea of imperfect action, they unlock an entirely new level of power. They're also susceptible to burnout, not because they overwork chaotically, but because they overcommit quietly. They'll say yes to too many responsibilities, take on more than their fair share, and push through fatigue just to maintain their standard of excellence. Their dedication makes them invaluable, but also vulnerable. They need to learn to delegate, to say no, and to recognize that their work ethic doesn't need to come at the cost of their well-being. Rest is not laziness. For the Taurus Rabbit, rest is a form of strategic recovery, a necessary reset that keeps the whole system running smoothly. Leadership, for them, is not about barking orders or dominating meetings. It's about creating a safe, stable environment where people can do their best work. They lead by example, by staying calm under pressure, by delivering consistently, and by treating everyone with quiet respect. Their team feels seen, heard, and supported. They're the kind of leaders who remember your kid's name, who celebrate small wins, and who build systems that support everyone, not just themselves. Their leadership style may be understated, but it creates a loyal following that runs deep. People stay with Taurus Rabbit bosses not for the perks, but for the peace. In the long game of business, the Taurus Rabbit wins not because they move fast, but because they move right. They bring thoughtfulness in a world obsessed with urgency. They bring stability in industries built on volatility, and they do it all without shouting. Their success story is written in spreadsheets, timelines, and follow-through. They may not always be first to act, but they're usually the last ones standing. And in a world that rewards flash but craves substance, that might just be the smartest strategy of all. Dark sides, when caution becomes chains. Every personality has a shadow, but the shadow of the Taurus Rabbit isn't loud, destructive, or obvious at first glance. It's soft, subtle. It arrives not as a scream but as a whisper, a quiet, persistent voice that says, "Stay safe. Stay still, don't rock the boat." And while that instinct to preserve peace and security is often their greatest strength, it's also the root of their deepest struggles. Their darkness doesn't show up in big explosions. It shows up in silent suffering. In years of staying too long, speaking too little, and shrinking themselves for the sake of keeping the world around them calm. The Taurus Rabbit can become dangerously attached to routine and familiarity. They're creatures of habit, not because they're lazy or unimaginative, but because stability gives them a sense of control in an unpredictable world. However, when taken too far, that craving for consistency turns into stubbornness so deep it borders on self-sabotage. They may stay in dead-end jobs, emotionally draining friendships, or unhealthy relationships simply because the alternative, uncertainty, feels more frightening than discomfort. They convince themselves it's not that bad, even when they're wilting inside. Change, for them, can feel like chaos, and they will do almost anything to avoid it, even at the cost of their own growth. One of the most subtle but toxic traits they can develop is emotional passivity. The rabbit's aversion to conflict, paired with Taurus's innate resistance to change, creates a perfect storm of silence. They don't like arguments. They don't like confrontation. So instead of expressing discomfort, they bottle it up. Instead of asking for what they need, they internalize their pain. They retreat inward, painting on a calm expression while quietly sinking under the weight of unspoken frustration. It doesn't matter if they're unhappy, as long as everyone else is comfortable, they tell themselves it's fine. But resentment builds, like pressure behind a dam, until eventually, something cracks. And when it cracks, it doesn't come out as a soft release. It erupts, not with fury, but with heartbreak. Years of unspoken emotion, grudges, disappointments, fears, come pouring out all at once. To others, it may seem sudden or irrational, but for the Taurus Rabbit, it's been building for ages beneath the surface. When they finally do speak up, it's often too late. The damage is already done, the distance already too wide, the emotional decay too advanced. And even then, they blame themselves. They feel guilt for feeling hurt. They question their right to feel overwhelmed. Their own pain becomes a source of shame, which only pushes them further inward. Their fear of rejection is another shadow they rarely acknowledge openly. The rabbit side of their personality is deeply sensitive to judgment and emotionally fragile beneath its polite exterior. Combine that with Taurus's natural inclination to protect the ego, and you get someone who will bend over backward to be liked, appreciated, or simply accepted. They struggle to say no. They overextend themselves. They try to be everything to everyone, often losing their own identity in the process. They fear that if they disappoint others, they'll be left behind. This fear, though often unspoken, governs many of their decisions and keeps them from asserting their true needs. Perfectionism is yet another hidden weight they carry. They want to get everything right: their job, their relationships, their image, their future. But this desire for perfection can turn paralyzing. They won't take the leap unless they know they'll land safely. They won't start the project unless every detail is mapped out. They won't voice the concern unless they've rehearsed it in their mind 100 times. And so, they miss out on opportunities, on adventures, on connections. While others are out there stumbling forward, learning through messiness, the Taurus Rabbit sits back, waiting for the stars to align. And the truth is, they often don't. In relationships, their loyalty can become their cage. They don't give up easily, on people, dreams, or promises. That's admirable, but it can also be harmful. They'll stay with someone who's emotionally unavailable, abusive, or indifferent simply because they remember who that person used to be. They cling to the potential, the memory, the hope that things will get better. They'll keep trying, keep giving, keep showing up long after the relationship has turned cold. And in doing so, they lose themselves. Their love turns from a sanctuary into a slow erosion of self-worth. They confuse endurance with devotion. They confuse loyalty with self-abandonment. Ultimately, their greatest shadow is their fear of transformation. Because to the Taurus Rabbit, transformation feels like death. It means leaving behind comfort, confronting hard truths, and stepping into the unknown. But what they must learn is that change doesn't always lead to destruction, it often leads to evolution. They need to understand that discomfort is not the enemy. That conflict, when handled with care, can lead to healing. That letting go is not giving up, it's making room for what's next. Until they embrace this truth, they'll remain in emotional limbo, living small in the name of safety. But when they begin to challenge their own caution, when they allow themselves to risk discomfort in the name of growth, they begin to shift. Their shadows don't disappear, but they stop holding the reins. And that's when the Taurus Rabbit becomes unstoppable. Still grounded, still intuitive, but no longer trapped by fear. They stop just surviving and begin truly living. They realize that the chains they feared were actually keys waiting to be used. And when they finally unlock the door, they discover that freedom, though unfamiliar, feels a lot like coming home. Life goals: building the beautiful life. The Taurus Rabbit's vision of success is quietly radical in a world obsessed with speed, noise, and spotlight. They don't want fame for fame's sake. They're not chasing applause, accolades, or viral validation. Instead, their life goals orbit around 3 core values: peace, purpose, and authentic connection. Their dream is not to be the loudest in the room, but the most grounded. Not to dominate, but to create a sanctuary for themselves and the people they love. Their ambition is steady, deeply personal, and rooted in a kind of soul-level fulfillment that doesn't require permission, performance, or proof. For the Taurus Rabbit, the concept of a beautiful life isn't aesthetic in the superficial sense, it's about depth, harmony, and emotional richness. A beautiful life means waking up in a space that feels safe, surrounding themselves with people who offer warmth instead of performance, and engaging in work that nourishes their spirit, not just their wallet. They crave slow mornings, meaningful routines, creative expression, and the freedom to live on their own terms. They don't need to be trending, they need to feel whole. In every goal they set, there's an underlying question: does this bring peace? Does this make me feel alive in the quiet moments? Home plays a central role in their vision. They want a space that feels like an extension of their soul. Soft textures, warm lighting, natural materials, calming smells, and a sense of grounded order. The rabbit in them needs emotional safety, and the Taurus in them needs physical comfort. Combined, they dream of a home that restores them after the world drains them. Their goals often include homeownership, nesting, or curating an environment where they can host the people who matter most. They're not just decorating, they're building meaning into every detail. A bookshelf isn't just for storage, it's for soul. A meal isn't just food, it's love on a plate. Career-wise, the Taurus Rabbit seeks more than a paycheck. They want work that aligns with their inner values. While they're capable of success in traditional fields, especially those requiring persistence, empathy, and structure, they are often drawn to roles where they can help others, express beauty, or create stability. That could mean therapy, interior design, teaching, finance, artisan crafts, wellness, hospitality, or culinary arts. They want their efforts to matter. They want to go to sleep feeling that what they did during the day added something good to the world, no matter how small. Their life goal is to be useful in content, not one without the other. Their approach to relationships reflects the same careful balance of emotion and purpose. They're not here for shallow circles or constant social climbing. They aim to cultivate a handful of deep, enduring connections that feel like chosen family. Their goals include long-term partnerships built on loyalty, mutual respect, and shared daily life. They don't romanticize grand passion as much as they cherish emotional steadiness. The person who sits with them in silence and still understands their heart, that's their idea of soulmate energy. Their friendships are chosen with just as much intention, often with people who value depth over drama, quiet over chaos. Creativity and beauty aren't just hobbies to them, they're life philosophies. Whether it's gardening, cooking, painting, writing, or designing their space, the Taurus Rabbit weaves art into the fabric of everyday living. But for them, beauty must always meet functionality. They won't obsess over form if the substance isn't there. Their dream kitchen isn't just Instagrammable, it's a place where stories are told over simmering pots. Their wardrobe isn't flashy, but every piece feels just right. Their rituals, making coffee, watering plants, journaling, are small ceremonies. These aren't distractions from life. To them, this is life. And the goal is to live it with intention, grace, and inner quiet. Financially, their goal is security, not luxury for show, but comfort with purpose. They want enough to never feel desperate, enough to support loved ones, enough to invest in peace. That might mean saving steadily, building a small business, or buying land to create their sanctuary. They're not driven by flash. They're driven by the desire to feel rooted. For them, a full bank account means freedom from fear, not status. And once they feel secure, they're generous, with their time, their resources, their love. They understand the value of having enough, and they're not interested in chasing excess at the expense of their soul. Spirituality often plays a quiet but essential role in their life path. They're not always overtly religious or publicly expressive about their beliefs, but they tend to seek personal meaning in daily experiences. They believe in signs, in timing, in the unseen threads that weave life together. Their life goal isn't to be enlightened in a performative way. It's to feel aligned. Aligned with their values, their energy, their truth. This might come through nature walks, meditation, music, therapy, or simply sitting in silence at the end of the day. They're not trying to escape life, they're trying to be in it, fully, with both feet and an open heart. At their best, when they're living in harmony with their truth, the Taurus Rabbit becomes a kind of emotional anchor for others. They radiate calm. They lead by example. They show that it's possible to build a life that feels beautiful, balanced, and deeply personal, even if it's quiet, even if it's slow. Their success story is not written in headlines or follower counts, but in the small, sacred spaces of everyday life. A peaceful home, a nourished body, a fulfilled heart, a steady, kind presence in the lives of others. And in that stillness, they become a living reminder that the real dream isn't more, it's enough. The ultimate life goal? To live gently, and leave something soft behind. Final thought. So, the next time you meet someone who seems calm in a crisis, who brings stability instead of chaos, who remembers birthdays without needing Facebook reminders and always shows up with something homemade or heartfelt, you might just be meeting a Taurus born in the year of the rabbit. They probably won't try to impress you. They're not going to lead with a business card or a loud personality. But what they will offer is something rare: presence. A kind of quiet attentiveness that makes you feel like you matter, even in the smallest moments. That's their magic. It's not performative, it's real. They are the kind of people who know when to speak and, even more importantly, when not to. They remember details most others miss: how you take your coffee, that one thing you said months ago in passing, or the name of your childhood dog. They won't always make the first move, but once they're in your life, they will remain a soft but steady force. Their support isn't transactional. They give because they feel, because they care, because offering stability is how they express love. They're the friend who brings a blanket when everyone else brings opinions. The partner who stocks the fridge before you even realize you're out of milk. What makes the Taurus Rabbit so quietly powerful is their ability to grow in the background. You might not notice them at first. They don't crave center stage. But give it time, and you'll realize they've become the emotional foundation of your world. They're the ones people rely on without realizing it. The calm in the group chat. The one who sends the check-in text after a hard day. They don't compete with louder personalities. They simply outlast them. Their resilience is gentle but unshakable. Their growth is constant but humble. They evolve not to prove a point, but to align more closely with who they truly are. Even when life tests them, when change threatens their comfort or emotion challenges their structure, they endure. They don't panic, they pause, they recalibrate, they adapt, quietly, deliberately. And when they emerge from difficulty, they do so with more grace than bitterness, more wisdom than fear. That's what makes them exceptional. Not perfection, but persistence. Not power, but poise. They bloom slowly, yes, but when they bloom, they do so in full color, with roots that go deep and petals that never apologize for their softness. They're the rare kind of person who inspires trust without having to ask for it. Who makes you feel safer just by being in the room. Who isn't trying to be somebody, in the loud, exhausting way the world expects, but ends up being unforgettable precisely because of their quiet authenticity. They don't live to be admired. They live to feel aligned. And that kind of integrity radiates. It's the kind of energy that can't be faked. The kind that lingers long after the moment is gone. So when you come across someone who doesn't chase the spotlight but somehow shines anyway, someone who builds a beautiful life not for show but for soul, you might just be in the presence of a Taurus Rabbit. They are not here to dominate. They are here to ground, to nurture, to remind us all that peace is a form of power, and presence is a form of poetry. They are the roots beneath the tree, the calm in the storm, the steady hands behind the scenes making life quietly better for everyone around them. And if you're lucky enough to know one, or be one, you already understand. Their greatness is not in what they demand, but in what they are. Soft, steady, sincere, always growing toward the light. If you enjoy deep dives like this one, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more zodiac breakdowns, archetype explorations, and character-driven cosmic insights. Check out the other videos in the description for even more astrological storytelling. And hey, share this with your Taurus Rabbit friend, if they haven't already beat you to it. Chances are, they probably have. Quietly, thoughtfully, and right on time.